Take every single person living in Montana right now. Every rancher, every ski bum, every retiree chasing silence, every kid waiting for the school bus on a dirt road at dawn. Move them all to Los Angeles. They wouldn't fill the city. They wouldn't come close. Montana is the fourth largest state in America, bigger than Germany. You could bury 3 Irelands inside its borders and still have room left over. And yet, fewer than 1.2 million people call it home. That's the population of a single mid-sized city, scattered across nearly 150,000 square miles of mountain, prairie, and sky. In some Montana counties, there is less than 1 person per square mile. Not one family, not one household, 1 person, surrounded by nothing but grass and wind and the slow rotation of the earth. And here's what should bother you. Montana is not ugly. It's not barren. It's not some forsaken stretch of American wasteland that people simply forgot. Montana is impossibly beautiful. Peaks that look carved from marble. Rivers so clear they seem fake. Glacier National Park. The northern gates of Yellowstone. Prairies that turn gold at dusk and hold the light like something sacred. On paper, Montana should be overrun. The highways should be clogged. The housing market should be a bloodbath. But the highways are empty, and the land stays quiet. Montana is almost violently underpopulated. And when you start digging into why, when you look past the glossy real estate listings and the breathless Instagram captions, you find something that doesn't photograph well. Something that explains why so many people fall in love with Montana from a distance, move there full of hope, and then quietly pack their things and go. This is the truth nobody puts in the brochure. Number 1. The cold isn't a season. It's a war of attrition. Montana is cold. You already knew that. It's in the north. It snows. You bring a coat. Simple. Except Montana's cold isn't simple. It's not postcard cold. Not cozy fireplace cold. It's the kind of cold that makes you understand, on a biological level, that this place does not want you here. Montana holds the record for the lowest temperature ever recorded in the lower 48 states, -70 degrees Fahrenheit. That was at a mining camp called Rogers Pass in 1954. At that temperature, the air doesn't just feel cold. It attacks. Your nostrils freeze shut. Exposed skin burns, then goes numb, then starts to die. The world becomes hostile in a way that's hard to describe unless you've felt it pressing against your chest like a hand. But the extremes aren't even the real problem. The real problem is duration. In much of Montana, winter doesn't arrive and leave. It moves in. It occupies. Snow can start falling in late September and keep falling until May. In the higher elevations, July is the only month where frost is truly off the table. That's 7 months. 8 months. Half a year where the sun sets at 4:30 p.m. and the world turns gray and still and silent. And this isn't Aspen. There's no village of wine bars and heated pools to soften the blow. No après-ski scene. No crowds to remind you that other humans exist. In most of Montana, it's just you, and the cold, and the slow crawl of days that look exactly the same. A woman I spoke with, a transplant from Southern California who landed near Lewistown, lasted 2 winters. The first one felt like an adventure, she told me. The second one felt like a hostage situation. That line hasn't left me, because Montana doesn't test you once. It tests you every year, for half of every year, until you break or you adapt, and most people break. But even if you survive the cold, there's something else waiting for you. Something the maps don't warn you about. Number 2, the distance isn't romantic. It's crushing. Montana isn't just big. It's big in a way that warps your sense of reality. In California, big means variety. Drive 3 hours and you'll hit desert, coast, mountains, cities. In Montana, you can drive 3 hours and see the same thing the entire time. Prairie, fence posts, a barn, another barn, a deer carcass rotting on the shoulder, more fence posts. Repeat until your eyes go dull. Some drives between towns don't feel long. They feel existential. If you live in rural Montana, your nearest grocery store might be 45 minutes away. Your nearest hospital? An hour. Maybe 90 minutes. Maybe more if the weather turns. And the weather always turns. There are places in this state where if you have a heart attack, you are going to die. Not because help won't come. Because help won't come in time. Medical helicopters exist, yes, but storms ground them regularly. And even when they fly, someone has to survive long enough for the rotors to touch down. This isn't fear-mongering. This is math. And the math shapes everything. Parents hesitate to raise kids where the school bus ride takes an hour each direction. Young professionals can't build careers because there's no industry to plug into. Singles struggle to date because the pool of potential partners in a town of 800 is less a pool and more a puddle, shallow and picked over. You fall in love with Montana for the space. Then the space starts to suffocate you. Because what looks like freedom on a map feels like imprisonment in practice. You can go anywhere, but everywhere takes hours. You're surrounded by beauty, but beauty can't restart your furnace at 3 a.m. when the repairman lives 2 counties away and the roads are buried under ice. There's a reason Montanans call it Big Sky Country. Sometimes the sky is all you have for company. And the silence that tourists find peaceful? After a while, it starts to press against you like a weight. That weight gets heavier when you look at the next problem, one that doesn't show up in tourism campaigns at all. Number 3. The economy wasn't built for people. It was built for extraction. Montana has never had a stable economy. It's had booms. It's had collapses. It's had luck, brief, violent bursts of luck, and long stretches of quiet desperation in between. For most of its history, Montana's economy was about pulling things out of the ground. Copper, coal, timber, gold, silver. When the veins were rich, towns exploded into existence. When the veins ran dry, those towns became ghosts. Some of them still are. Today, Montana runs on 3 industries: agriculture, tourism, and healthcare. None of them pay well. The median household income sits stubbornly below the national average, far below states like Colorado or Washington, where people actually want to live and work. And here's the cruel twist. In the places tourists love most, Bozeman, Whitefish, Missoula, the cost of living has detonated. Bozeman has become a case study in economic absurdity. Tech workers from Seattle, retirees from San Francisco, remote employees from Denver. They flood in with salaries that have nothing to do with local wages. They bid against each other for every house that hits the market. They drive prices into the stratosphere. A median home in Bozeman now costs north of $700,000. The median income for people who actually work in Bozeman, roughly $65,000. Those numbers don't shake hands. They don't even make eye contact. So what happens? The workers leave. The teachers leave. The nurses leave. The baristas and ski instructors and line cooks who make the town function look at rent prices, do the arithmetic, and surrender. And if you try to escape by moving to a cheaper part of Montana, the Eastern Plains, the Forgotten Valleys, you're not solving the problem. You're trading it. There, the issue isn't affordability. It's absence. No offices, no factories, no employers, just land, cattle, and the occasional gas station selling lottery tickets to people who stopped hoping years ago. Montana's beauty and Montana's economy exist in permanent opposition, and no one feels that opposition more sharply than the people who grew up here. Number 4. The young don't leave because they want to. They leave because they have to. This is the pattern. It plays out the same way, over and over, in small towns across the state. A kid grows up in Montana, learns to love it, knows every trail, every river, every back road shortcut, graduates high school, maybe works a summer job, maybe takes a gap year, and then they go. Denver, Seattle, Minneapolis, Phoenix. Anywhere with jobs, anywhere with options, anywhere the future doesn't feel like a dead end. Some of them love Montana more than anything. Some of them cry when they leave. But staying isn't about willpower. It's about possibility. And for most young Montanans, staying means accepting a life defined by limitation. You cannot build a career in software development in rural Montana. You cannot find a thriving creative scene. You cannot date outside a tiny, incestuous social circle where everyone already knows everyone and the options dried up years ago. So they go. And Montana grows older. The median age creeps up. The schools shrink. The class sizes dwindle. The ranches pass from one generation to the next, but the next generation increasingly doesn't want them or can't afford to keep them running. This is the slow bleed of rural Montana. The land stays beautiful. The people who remain are proud, resilient, bound together by shared hardship. But there are fewer of them every year, and the ones who leave rarely come back. Not because they forgot, because they can't figure out how to return without abandoning everything they've built since they left. That kind of loss doesn't register in census numbers, but you can feel it in the empty storefronts, the boarded-up schools, the family reunions where the youngest person in the room is 45, and none of this gets better on its own. Number 5. The infrastructure isn't coming. There's a fantasy some people hold on to, that Montana's emptiness is temporary. That someday, the roads will be paved and the hospitals will open and the broadband cables will be laid and the population will finally fill in the gaps. That fantasy misunderstands how infrastructure works. Infrastructure follows density. You don't build a highway to serve 12 ranchers. You don't fund a hospital in a county that can't fill an emergency room. Development requires critical mass, and Montana doesn't have it. May never have it. So the state remains underbuilt, deliberately, structurally, perhaps permanently. Broadband internet is a rumor in much of rural Montana. Cell service vanishes the moment you leave a main highway. Power outages are common in winter and they don't last hours. They last days. And the roads, God, the roads. Montana has roughly 74,000 miles of public roadway. Many are gravel. Many are unpaved in sections. Many become impassable when snow falls or spring thaw turns the ground to soup. Driving in Montana isn't commuting. It's expedition planning. You bring extra gas. You bring blankets. You bring food in case you get stranded. You tell someone where you're going and when you expect to arrive, and you hope your phone has signal if plans change. This is not rugged charm. This is survival protocol dressed up as lifestyle. And none of it will change anytime soon. Because infrastructure costs money. Money comes from taxes. Taxes come from people. And people don't move to places without infrastructure. It's a trap. A loop. A slow spiral with no obvious exit. The beauty stays intact, partly by intention, partly by neglect. Number 6. The history that never filled in. Most American states followed a familiar arc. Pioneers arrived. Land was claimed. Towns formed. Industry followed. Cities grew. The population stabilized. The frontier closed. Civilization set in. Montana started that arc. It never finished it. The state was carved from indigenous lands, territories the Crow, the Blackfeet, The Salish Kootenai had called home for generations. Treaties were signed, then shattered, then rewritten with less favorable terms. Reservations were drawn, redrawn, shrunk. The violence of that theft still pulses beneath the surface, unresolved and unrepaired. Then came the gold rush. Prospectors flooded in, chasing glitter. Then came the Copper Kings. Fortunes were made, not by Montanans, but by industrialists who shipped wealth east and left scars behind. Then came the railroads. They built towns, but only towns that served the railroad's needs. When the trains stopped running, those towns collapsed. Some of them are still collapsing. Montana was never truly settled. It was strip-mined. Resources flowed out. Profit flowed elsewhere. And when the booms ended, the boom towns emptied. What's left is a patchwork of ghost towns, half-dead mining camps, and rural communities that have been shrinking for 100 years. And fundamentally, underneath all the extraction and exploitation, the land itself never invited dense human presence. The soil is thin. The growing season is brutally short. Water is locked in snowpack to the west and scarce on the plains to the east. You can raise cattle, but you need vast acreage to do it. You can grow wheat, but marginally. There's no Mississippi here. No gentle rain feeding fertile valleys. Montana was always going to resist. And so it stayed empty, not because it's unloved, but because love was never enough. Number 7. The paradox of wanting what rejects you. Here's what makes all of this so disorienting. Montana, right now, is more popular than it's ever been. Thanks to Yellowstone, the TV show that turned ranching into fantasy. Thanks to remote work, which untethered millions of Americans from their offices. Thanks to a pandemic that made everyone dream, briefly, of wide open spaces and clean air and escape. Montana is suddenly desirable. People are moving there. Money is pouring in. Bozeman is overrun. Whitefish is discovered. Missoula is no longer a secret. And yet, even with this wave, Montana remains fundamentally, defiantly, empty. Because the people who move there learn the same lesson that settlers learned 100 years ago. Montana does not negotiate. You can buy the ranch. You can build the cabin. You can post the golden sunsets and the fly fishing trips and the elk grazing at twilight. But you'll still be 90 minutes from emergency care. You'll still lose power when the blizzard hits. You'll still spend January staring out a frozen window, alone, watching the thermometer drop below zero for the 5th consecutive night. And slowly, grudgingly, many of those newcomers pack up and leave. The fantasy dissolves. Reality hardens. Montana doesn't adjust for you. You adjust for Montana, or you go somewhere else. There's a phrase Montanans use when they talk about their state. The last best place. It comes from an anthology of Montana writing, a celebration of wildness, independence, beauty, survival, and it's accurate. Montana is one of the last places in America where you can climb a ridge and see nothing human-made in any direction, where silence isn't an absence, but a presence, where the night sky looks the way it looked 10,000 years ago before light pollution erased the stars. But there's something buried in that phrase. The last, best place, last, as in the one that's still here because no one managed to fill it. The one that survived because it refused. Because it made comfort impossible, and connection rare, and prosperity unlikely. Montana isn't empty because people don't want it. It's empty because wanting has never been enough. You have to sacrifice things most Americans consider non-negotiable. Convenience, career, community, access, connection. You have to accept the cold, not just the winter cold, but the quieter cold of isolation, of distance, of being hours from help and days from company. Most people, when they're honest, won't make that trade. So Montana remains what it's always been. A place that looks like a dream from far away. A place that feels like a reckoning up close. A place where the beauty is undeniable. And so is the cost of loving it.